Many times things are exactly as they appear to be, but sometimes they're not. How do you tell the difference? Hi, this is Larry Kaye with ShadowAnyone.com and the creator of the Investigator's Ultimate Guide series, which is premium private investigator training from someone who's been there and done that. That's the way the world works, that things usually are the way they appear to be. Thank goodness that that's the case, because that's how we can function on a normal basis. You're driving down the road, you see a car coming down the other side of the road. It appears like they're going to stay on their side of the road. Usually they do. That's how we can function in this world. Now, you and I know as private investigators that things aren't always as they appear. And one of the things is because bad guys try to blend in, they try to make things look normal so that they can do their crimes. So let's take a real world example here of somebody working loss prevention, asset protection, somebody preventing shoplifting and other kinds of thefts from a store. Into the store walks a clean-cut individual, some guy with his hair combed properly, he's clean, he's got a dress shirt on, buttoned down, he's wearing a tie, he's got slacks and good shoes on. Looks like maybe a businessman who's on lunch break, maybe he's swinging in to pick up something for his wife or whatever, just some casual shopping thing. The problem is, this guy, yes, looks completely legitimate, and most of the time what you see is what you get. It is a businessman who's stopping in at lunch to make a purchase. However, what you know as an experienced or trained person at the very least, is this same man can walk into the men's department, put on a $150 or $200 jacket, sports jacket, and walk out the front door, and he looks completely legitimate. So how can you tell the difference between what's really happening and what appears to be happening, or maybe they're exactly the same thing? And the trick here is to look at the full context. Look at everything. A person working at the store folding sweaters, or a sales associate, sees this guy walk in, thinks, yes, that's what a customer looks like, and goes back to folding sweaters or whatever it is they're doing. You as loss prevention see this person walk in, and you know there's a possibility that there could be a theft, especially of a high-end jacket. So you watch just a little bit more. Does the man walk into the store, go shopping, start looking at prices, or does he make a beeline right into the men's department? Does he walk along the aisle and then down to where he needs to be, or does, as soon as he get the chance, he cut back through the merchandise and cut along the back wall to get to the jackets? Is he looking around nervously? Does he care if a sales associate is around? See, you're going to look at the totality, the full big picture of what's going on to try to determine whether or not there's a theft that's going to happen. You may very quickly say, nope, this guy appears to be legitimate because of everything else he's doing, or you may see some of those warning signs I just talked about, and you say this guy needs to be watched a little bit more. Let's take another real world example. You're doing surveillance, you're watching, and you see a guy limping down the street. He's got kind of a severe limp. All right, 99 out of 100 times, this is a guy with a bad leg, and that's all there is to it. And that's all that a bad guy would want you to think, unless it's that very rare occasion where it's a guy actually concealing a shotgun down the leg of his pants, and he's limping because he's got that shotgun there. How can you tell the difference between a legitimate person who's got an injury and a person who's trying to take advantage of that and look like a legitimate person? Again, look at the full context. Take a little bit more than just a quick passing glance and deciding on its face this is not a problem. How is the guy walking? Is he walking with determination? Is he going towards a group of people? Is he going towards a particular store? As he gets there, does he put his hood up and pull the drawstrings tight to kind of hide his face? Look at the totality of how this person's behaving, where they're going, how they're going there, to determine whether this might be more of a problem than it actually appears on its face. Now, both of those examples are cases where the vast majority of the time, the thing you see is exactly what it appears to be. Let's flip the coin a little bit and look at the other side of that. So you're doing surveillance again, you're maybe in a neighborhood with a homeless population, and you see a guy sit down on a stoop, and he pulls a little baggie out of his pocket. It's got a leafy tobacco type product in there. Then he pulls out a rolling paper, he sprinkles a little bit of this leafy product onto the rolling paper, tucks the plastic baggie back into his jacket, and rolls up a cigarette and begins to smoke it. Now, most of the time, honestly, that's going to appear like somebody rolled a marijuana joint. This is the way you see people carry weed, is in a little baggie. They're going to use rolling papers a lot of times. This is very characteristic of someone who's smoking marijuana. But let's take and look at the whole picture. Let's look at the totality of it. Because did you know that homeless people will go around and pick up cigarette butts? They'll collect them to harvest that little bit of non-smoked tobacco at the end. They'll sit down and they'll roll the filter and a little bit of paper and have that tobacco that's left over drop into the baggie. They'll toss away the filter and the paper. And in fact, if you are familiar with this and you're walking in the streets downtown a lot of times, you can see where there's a stoop and there's just a bunch of filters and the remnants of paper left. They're not really full cigarette butts. That's where one of these guys has stopped and harvested the tobacco. So what you have is homeless guys who do this to collect the tobacco and roll their own cigarettes. It's not someone smoking marijuana. How do you see? How do you know the difference? Again, like I say, look at the totality of it. Here's a guy who's putting a plastic baggie back in his pocket. He's not stuffing it, hiding it down in his pants, for example. But also look at, is this a homeless guy? Or is it somebody who, maybe a drug dealer or somebody who sits on the corner and smokes dope regularly? You can kind of tell the difference. Look at how are they holding a cigarette. People hold cigarettes, generally they'll hold a cigarette different than they hold a joint. How are they hitting it? How are they drawing on it? Those things are different too. So look at the totality. Before you say, okay, I got this guy out here with a baggie full of pot smoking weed on the corner, consider these other elements and think maybe it's just a homeless guy who's been harvesting tobacco off the city streets. The whole point I have for you here is I want you to, as much as you can, avoid these snap judgments, or at least when you make a snap judgment, pause for a moment and say, is there more going on here than meets the eye? Because this is where you're going to find some really good territory for you as a private investigator. Your client's going to be wildly impressed when they see that you understand the difference between these things. What they see on video or what they see in a report is wildly different from what's actually happening, and you are able to point out the differences and show them. Now, this isn't going to happen on every surveillance with every client, but it's going to happen over time. Don't force it. These things come up, and you will naturally, over a period of time, show yourself to be the expert you are, and that's very good for business, that's good for your client, and it's just good for you to have that confidence and know what you're looking at. It gets you to that point where you've been there and done that. This is Larry Kaye with ShadowAnyone.com. Remember, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.